Previously on Podcast Without Pretense.
I'm sorry, guys. Hang on a second. I'm putting in show notes for the other podcast I do.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you over my pinky ring. It's so loud.
Hindi was way harder than I thought it would be.
Man, yeah, I'm sorry you guys didn't have a chance to watch, the version on Netflix where it actually had subtitles. Made it much more challenging for you to watch this week's movie.
Yes. Hey, this is Podcast Without Pretense. I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
I'm Jonathan Strickland.
And I'm Eric Sandine.
And together, we make 1/50th of a Bollywood musical number.
1/50th, if you're lucky.
Yeah, you get
a small Bollywood number.
You got to get 150 people together. So, do you guys want to jump into the movie, or do you want to talk about anything else first?
We can jump in. It's a long movie, so
it is a long movie.
And we're going to be covering the movie real time. So if you're watching.
Yeah. All right. And so the scene opens. So on Podcast Without Pretense, we watch movies. We attempt to watch a film with no distractions present and see how far we can get into it before our attention spans demand that something else happen in our immediate vicinity to take some attention away from the film. We usually pick really bad movies so that this is a true test. And then after we give up, we can either continue watching the movie with distractions or we can just walk away. But either way, we have to write down how far we got into the film before we gave up. And this week it was my pick. I picked our first Bollywood feature to be shown on Podcast Without Pretense. I picked Singham, which I had seen on Facebook. There was a clip that was going around that's a pivotal scene in the movie that I think was credited as the Indian Chuck Norris in the version I saw. So before we talk about what the movie was, how far did you guys get before you had distractions creep in?
Oh.
I had 21 minutes and 48 seconds.
Okay.
21 minutes. I made it a solid hour into this movie before I had a distraction.
I made it an hour and 45 minutes.
Nice. I was very.
That's after the only reason
there's no intermission.
There is an intermission.
There is an intermission.
Said intermission.
Not in the Netflix version. Not that I saw.
Oh. Weird. Okay.
Yeah, the Netflix version goes straight through. I also have it on good authority that this was short for a Bollywood film. It was about a little shy of 2.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was no intermission in my version, which is sad because that probably means I missed out on some awesome music. Singham.
No, I think
the intermission is literally it's a shot of Singham, and it turns all red and it freezes. Yeah. It's got this awesome, the same font, the same silver, the same fire as the intro, and it says intermission, and then it goes right back to the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so I guess we need to explain what the movie is about. Iyaz, take it away.
Sure. This movie is about a cop who is going to take he's going to take down a really corrupt villain. That's pretty much the long and short of the whole thing. He's like a cop from a small town. His whole town loves him. The movie starts off, and actually I want to describe the movie. That's usually Jonathan's whole thing. But that's the whole plot of the movie. He's just trying to take down a bad guy. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, kind of the bad guy in this case is essentially a hotel owner and organized crime ringleader. Mm-hmm. And his actions, the very beginning of the movie opens up where another decent cop has had evidence planted on him and has been accused of corruption, of which he is innocent. And he knows he's innocent, and his wife knows he's innocent, and his little mute son knows he's innocent. But because that kid never talks, does he? Or does he finally talk at some point in the movie? I don't
think he does.
He does.
I was about to say.
He does.
I was about to say, I watched this movie when we were, supposed to talk about it. So my memory is a little more hazy than you guys.
It's during. I don't want to. This is not a spoiler because we'll get to this at some point. Because this movie's from 2011, so it's not a spoiler anymore. But there's a scene where Singham is going to take out the guys in the Jeep, and he pulls out a lamp, and that's right before that scene
Oh, he
happens.
talks in
that's
that
when
scene?
the kid comes up to him and says, "I'm afraid of those bad guys," effectively, and then that's when he's like, "I'm going to destroy everybody." That basically makes him snap for the rest of the movie.
Well, that lamp sequence is the sequence I saw posted on Facebook, the action sequence that became that convinced me that we needed to cover this film. So, at the very beginning of the movie, this cop who is the father of the mute kid, the mostly mute kid, and husband to the virtuous wife, commits suicide. He's driven to commit suicide because he is so shamed by the charges of corruption and that he has no way of clearing his name. And that kind of acts as a catalyst for the rest of the film. Although it takes a while before our hero, Singham, who we learn all about in the opening music number, where we learn about his virtues and his powers and the fact that he stands up for good and he'll always strike down evil like a tiger.
I believe one of my favorite notes that I wrote was, wait, is he singing his own theme song?
Yes, the answer is yes, he did. But other people also sing it repeatedly throughout the movie. Whenever anything remotely action-oriented happens, you hear Singham. And you hear like the drums come up. But he's supposed to be like the quintessential paladin like good guy, which is odd because there's some very morally questionable things he does in this movie.
In
an attempt to bring down the bad guy.
When you get around to the ending, you're just sitting there going, "Oh, well, all right, all this works, but
it's effective, but So imagine that you've got Superman. All right, it's Superman versus Lex Luthor, and Superman normally would bring Lex Luthor in, but Lex Luthor has occupied a position of power, leaving him untouchable by Superman. Unless Superman were to violate his own code of ethics. So Superman decides, in order to be able to go after Lex Luthor, to plant incriminating evidence that Luthor did not actually do in order to be able to discover said evidence and bring Luthor into the authorities. The justification being, Luthor has clearly done other illegal things. I just can't prove those, so I'll invent one I can prove. And then everything will be okay. Because that's what Singham does. He plants illegal alcohol on a bad guy's truck. And like this happens multiple times where his men all end up, he gets transferred into a police station in a big city. He's from a small village where he's seen as kind of like this very wise, patient man who settles differences without anyone ever having to go to jail or go to court. He kind of passes judgment Solomon-like, and everything works out okay. He gets transferred to the big city, and at first the men there, most of whom are corrupt, don't pay him much mind, but over time they come to respect him, and they all also go along with his morally questionable choices. Like
that's the interesting part. Like he moves to the big city and starts convincing everybody that they got to take down this bad guy. So he gets them on the correct moral path, right? To try to do this, and then everybody ends up doing something illegal anyway.
They're already corrupt cops. The whole place is corrupt. The whole city is owned by this bad guy who is just a wonderful bad guy. I mean, there's nothing about him that's quite redeeming. He's a little over the top. Everybody's a little over the top in this thing. But to see these corrupt cops be like, well, we'll follow this other guy who is obviously not following the straight and narrow. Not that big a leap, but also like it didn't seem like it's something that it wouldn't happen like in a lot of movies that I watch where it's like, oh, well, it's the good guy, and the good guy, like the Superman analogy.
It sure didn't take much convincing, that's for sure. Like
it just stood there angrily.
Yeah,
that's it. Lots of angry looks.
Yeah, when I love that, he ends up like he'll strike his superior officer. He starts to slap his superior officer around like the head of all the police in this city, not just his direct superior,
Right.
but the guy above him. He starts slapping him around in the guy's office with all of Singham's men there too, the other police officers who were formerly corrupt or lazy or both. And he slaps the guy around, and the guy says, "How can you?" He's like crying because he's supposed to be, the ultimate corrupt official, and I guess the crying is supposed to show that he's a cowardly, little nothing, whereas Singham is the manly, uh, corrupt-free character. So Singham's slapping the guy around, and the guy turns to the men and he says, "You all saw this," and all the men are like, "I didn't see anything." And I'm like, oh my God. Everybody is like just going to go with it.
What this movie taught me is if I ever need to find minions, I'm going to an Indian police station.
Because those fuckers are loyal.
Yeah.
They will follow you to the grave. No, you know what? I'm making fun of this. And of course, like all Bollywood films, there are multiple musical numbers. There's a love story, which is more than just a little contrived.
It was really only like 4 or 5 songs, right?
Yeah. There's the opening theme. Yeah. There's the one love song that the girl sings as soon as she realizes she's in love with Singham.
Right.
There's also the courtship song that they
sing one together, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they sing one together. There might be one more, but those are the 3 I remember.
Yeah.
But so there are some songs that break up the action, and really the songs are there to explain a character's feelings about another character. They're not meant to be, this is literally happening within the context of the movie. It's very clear that this is a moment out of time that's not actually happening within the context of the film. For example,
as opposed to our previous film?
Well, I mean, like "Don't Go in the Woods," the songs were clearly happening within the film itself.
And by the way, the songs in Singham are better than "Don't Go
Way
in
better.
the Woods."
Way better.
Far better.
I would say because there's less of them, maybe more tolerable than High School Musical. Maybe?
I don't know. I'm coming around to liking High School Musical more.
High School Musical has some pretty good satire in its songs. I will say that. But
to be fair, though,
only 3 songs.
I haven't watched it a second time, and it may be that time and distance are just making me think more fondly on it than I should. I fully admit that.
If that were true, then you'd be loving Rock and Roll Frankenstein by now.
Yeah. No amount of time or distance is ever going to do. So anyway, I was going to say the love story in this case. There's a young lady who appears to be approximately 20 years younger than Singham. She's the daughter of a guy who used to be a member of Singham's village. Like he grew up there, but then moved up to the big city and became successful.
Right.
And now has forgotten his roots, which is demonstrated by the fact that he always has his cell phone on him and it always rings at inopportune moments and he always takes the call. Thus, he's forgotten his roots.
And I actually had to look up because they call him Gotia. Yeah. And
what does that mean?
I actually had to look that up because I was like, they're using this as a weird insult, but I have no idea what it means. And all it means is, the best I found was possibly villager or common person. So they're insulting him because he moved to the city, and now they're calling him like, "Oh, you're just one of us" or something. That's the best translation I could find.
And it's supposed to be a play on his name, right? Like his name is similar to Goya, and that's why it's a running gag in the movie. That one, obviously that's one of those cultural things that kind of escapes us. And but there are a lot of elements.
That's why I had to find a random forum that was about this movie to find that weird translation where somebody was like, "Oh, here's what they're trying to say." Yeah.
Well, the girl is his daughter, the Goya's daughter, and she, when she first shows up, she's kind of a troublemaker. I think the implication is she's looking at the villagers as rubes because she's from the city, and Then she tries to play a prank on Singham, which backfires when he slaps her, which
Right.
I shouldn't have laughed at, but I did.
Well, in all fairness, so she's running around town in a goofy rubber mask, and she is scaring villagers, and the villagers are freaking out to
Yeah,
the
they're
point where
superstitious.
Singham's like his second in command is like freaked out because there's a ghost on the loose. Like not a person in a big rubber mask, which is really obvious. It's not like there's any clever tricks of lighting or anything. They're showing up and they're like waving their hands, and so when she comes upon Singham, he just sees this person and slaps her right on the left side of her face. Well, she's wearing the mask, so he doesn't know who's in there. But it was like, and then I realized later, I'm like, did he just land a date by slapping a woman in the face?
To
Yeah.
his credit, he felt really, really badly about it.
True.
And also she doesn't immediately find him attractive after that. What happens is it's after he rescues her. She goes to the movies, and when she's at the movies, she's accosted by a hoodlum and his cronies. And so the hoodlum ends up taking one of her articles of clothing, like a scarf or something. I'm sure there's a specific Indian name for the piece of clothing, and I apologize for my cultural ignorance not knowing that. But at any rate, she runs back and explains what happens. It gets back to Singham. He goes out and beats the living shit out of the guy and all of his cronies.
Epically,
and retrieves.
by the way. Epic.
What's that? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was one of the. I actually enjoyed that fight scene more than the lamppost one.
It also goes on for like what appears to be like 10 to 15 minutes. It is an ass whooping.
Yeah.
And it's just
he shuts down a movie theater with tons of people walking out just so he can find one dude.
But then he beats up not just that one dude, but an entire city's worth of dudes. It's one of those things where he
go ahead.
He beats up the dude.
What is with the
He beats up the dude and the dude's gang, and then like 30 more guys come running up.
Yeah, that's what I was like. This bully apparently like this is like his domain because like you said, it seems like 30 people show up. They just come like, oh, they were around the corner and they're waiting for their boy to get beaten up because they just come flying in, and it's like there's no explanation why, and there's no explanation later why exactly. I just figured it was some kind of fierce village loyalty because there seems to be a lot of that in this movie.
Well, at any rate, once he rescues the girl, that's when she really falls in love with him. So much so that she begins to orchestrate crimes so that she has an excuse to call on him to help her. And he doesn't quite figure out what's going on. He knows something's up. He's not the brightest light bulb in the drawer as our Singham, but he knows that something's going on. He's getting a little fed up with her because she's being so weird about needing his help all the time. And then finally they force it out of her that she has been orchestrating these fake crimes just as an excuse to see him. And then she explains that the reason is because she loves him now, which shocks him. Like he is genuinely surprised. And that was probably my favorite part of the movie because he actually comes across as being kind of adorable and dorky when he is confronted with the fact that this young girl loves him and he doesn't know how to handle it. But that's when we get our next big musical number. That's when the young girl sings what her feelings are for Singham, and she has this whole fantasy in her head about how they're going to be together. And then, of course, the song ends, and it's clear that they're not together. And that's when I was like, all right, I've never watched a Bollywood film all the way through before. I don't really know how the songs typically get incorporated, but in this case, it was clear that it was that moment out of time. It wasn't something that was actually happening in the film. And that's when I felt like I had a better grip on what was going on.
I grew up on a lot of these. My mom would put them on all the time. This is before Bollywood got huge, okay? So she'd get these VHS tapes, and it was weird because I've been watching this movie, and they speak Hindi.
You might have to explain to the kids what VHS is.
VHS is like this. It's an analog tape that you'd actually like have to run through heads and get the magnetic media off of it, or read it anyway. And
you had to rewind those things, or else that that rental
True.
store would get on your ass.
And it's got to be a specialty rental store. I mean, it was Queens, so you could find one of these rental stores to find these Indian movies. So she'd bring them over, and this movie is in Hindi, and my mom does not speak Hindi. I guess she understands it, but around the house they'd speak Urdu, and my dad understood Punjabi, but Hindi wasn't exactly something they spoke around the house because my folks are from Pakistan. And this movie's in India. So like the weird thing was, as I'm like listening to this movie, a lot of the words are coming back because I like heard this stuff all the time growing up. So I'm like, oh, I remember this. So at some point, because I cheated while watching this movie, because I watched it on YouTube, I think about an hour to go with the movie, I watched it all in 2x speed. I watched it read really fast because I'm like, okay, I got to watch this movie before the show starts, and I don't have a lot of time. So 2x on YouTube, so fucking great because it makes you read faster. Also, the language was pretty easy to pick up. So like, okay, I don't understand every single word, but like I'm like, oh yeah, I know that insult, and I know that word to say shut up. Or come
What's awesome
here.
is that all the slow motion action sequences would get played back at real time.
Yeah.
There was one musical number where they are like in this fantastic looking lit place. It almost looked like somebody put like Christmas lights everywhere, or like I don't know how you would describe this, like a gazebo.
It started off looking fantastic, but the longer that number went on, the cheaper that set looked to me. But
So
when
the
it
set
started,
is-
like the very first shot was like jaw dropping.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
watching it in 2x speed, and it looks like they're just moving in normal speed because they're really taking their time. So that's a good rule of thumb. If we pick another movie, we should have the YouTube option because that should be really helpful. Anyway,
Yeah, well, you know.
Nice.
But at any rate, the way the story continues is that now you've got Singham, who is in love with this girl who lives in the big city. He gets transferred to the big city, which he first thinks is a blessing for him, that everything's coming up Singham. But then it turns out the reason he was transferred is because the big bad guy, who had previously been forced to go all the way out to Singham's village because that's where he was being processed for a charge that was laid against him. He found out that he couldn't manipulate Singham, and when he tried to, all the villagers rise up and threaten him and bust open the windows of his cars, and he realizes there's no way, like he doesn't have power there, and it drives him crazy. So he arranges to have Singham transferred to the big city where he does have power. And then the next like hour to an hour and a half of the movie is essentially the bad guy lording it over Singham and showing that he can manipulate the system to such a degree that nothing Singham does is going to make any difference because no one is on his side. His superiors are all in the bad guy's pocket. And so what's playing out is a repetition of what happened at the beginning of the movie. The idea that this bad guy is going to depress Singham to the point where he'll take his own life. And then eventually Singham is like, you know what? I don't give a shit anymore, and decides to just take it to the bad guy. And that's pretty much the end of the movie, where he takes it to the bad guy and then beats the living shit out of him. My favorite attack in this whole movie is Singham's go-to move, where he goes up with his tiger claw and it comes down and hits the top of the head of whoever he's fighting and slams them down so hard that they flip back up into the air. He essentially just does a bouncy ball with an entire person.
all right, so I have notes, and this is what I wrote really big. Jonathan got a glimpse of this earlier, but this is what I wrote after a while. Dat palm strike. Because anytime he does this, and you hear, I believe it's either a tiger roar or it's a lion's roar, because he mentions lions a lot in the movie.
Yeah.
When he just smacks people on the head, like the first time he does it, like I think somebody bounces on the ground and moves aside. But every other time he does it, like it's this amazing, like, okay, if you want to think of any like realistic physics, throw them out the window and then apply it here, because it's just like hilarious to see somebody get hit in the forehead and then like bounce all the way to the right. Even though the force was here, they went that way. It was just freaking awesome.
Well, I think the very first guy, his move is that when he gets hit by the palm strike, he falls face first on the ground, bounces, and then lands on his back. And you're like, shit. That's a hell of a move.
Was he in the chair when he starts, or is that somebody else?
I can't.
No, the chair was the well, there's many chair scenes. There's the one where he kicks the guy out of the police station while he's sitting on his chair. Um, I
This
don't
guy, by
remember.
the way, this actor is actually he's pretty buff. He's a big dude, um, and so a lot of the moves tend to look pretty good. But they're like Aya said, it's all over the top. Like people
He
get thrown way further than they really would, and if they did get thrown that far, they sure as hell wouldn't be getting back up again. um, but the big famous fight scene with the lamppost, it it's Singham standing at a pier. It's when he's really kind of hit his lowest point, where he doesn't know what to do because because the system is so corrupt, he can't succeed. He's a good man in a broken system, and he's standing there with the mute kid, who apparently talks in this one scene, the virtuous wife, and his 20 years younger girlfriend, and he's standing there when bad guys taunt him, and then they throw a beer bottle at him, which breaks CGI style right next to him. And so he just stares them down, casually grabs a lamppost that's embedded in like a concrete pedestal, and slowly works it back and forth over the process of what feels like 7 minutes until he's able to, yeah, he pulls it free and wields it club style, runs at the bad guys who now cannot get their Jeep to start, and yet they don't get out of the Jeep. They're still holding out hope that this thing's going to turn over. And he gets there and does a huge leap and swings, and then just wails a guy right in the head with the end of the lamppost, which was a fantastic shot. One of the best ones in the movie. And and then there's the enormous fight scene.
The funny thing about this is that that's the fight scene that you knew, but the scene that I actually knew of from this, I didn't know was in this movie, which like my girlfriend was sitting next to me at this point, and it's the scene where the bad guys are returning the girl that they kidnapped, and they're in a Jeep, they hit another Jeep, and the car starts rolling. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In the air.
In the air. And he's just standing there. Oh, that's right. Singham shoots out one tire. The car flips up into the air, starts rolling end over end. And my girlfriend's sitting next to me, and she goes, "Oh my God, this is amazing." And I was like, "Oh, you wait. I know this. It gets better."
Yeah.
Because it's
the car
rolling
flies over him.
Over top of Singham. He reaches in and grabs the driver out of the car and pulls him out. And
as the car is still flying
as the car's
over.
still spinning. Yeah.
That's an animated GIF somewhere, and I've seen it too. And I'm like, that's the scene. I know that scene. But I'm like, that couldn't be what Jonathan's talking about.
Once that scene started and I saw him standing there, I was like, oh, I've seen this before.
Yeah. See, now I'm not sure if it's a cultural thing or not, but the whole end justifies the means kind of approach that he takes, where he does plant evidence on bad guys, and they are legitimately bad guys, but he's still doing an unethical thing in order to get what he wants. I don't know if that's just a cultural thing. Like, I'm so ignorant of India's culture. I don't know if that's something that would be considered heroic. I assume it would, based upon every other depiction of this character in the movie. But it was one of those things that really kind of puzzled me. Apart from that, and apart from a couple of other like ham-fisted moves with the romance story, I found this film genuinely entertaining.
I would agree with you. Like, I was laughing out loud at some of it. The performances. I mean, I guess there is a lack. Since I didn't understand everything that was going on, it's kind of like, well, I assume this is a good performance, because even though you don't understand what they're saying, you can see a lot of passion. The bad guy, I mean, this guy, he's just 100% evil, and he's really good at it. And he's kind of funny at times. You can tell he's kind of light and insulted, but it's just kind of like, it's a fun movie. It seems like an 80s throwback, or if you like the movie Shoot 'Em Up, it's kind of like that. Like, if you think too hard about it, you're not going to like it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally enjoyed watching it the entire time. I was having a great ride.
I'm glad that we were able to have this moment of enjoyment. I agree with you, Iyaz. The bad guy he's the perfect bad guy because you just wanted to slap the shit out of him, right? I mean, you wanted to reach into the movie and slap this guy, and it was the perfect choice. I mean, you wanted to slap him for the right reasons because his character was so odious. He had this look of smug superiority the entire time, which is exactly what was needed. He was perfect. I loved it.
Yeah.
And the actress they got playing the love interest, I mean, she's legitimately absolutely drop dead gorgeous. But but still I don't know. She looked to me like she was like there was a couple of decades of age difference between the two characters, but I don't know. Maybe I was misjudging. I'm a terrible judge at age anyway, so
I've got my notes, which by the way is very hard to write when you're trying to read at double speed. I will say. So they're not as long and this is a long ass movie. It's 2 hours 25 minutes. So I don't have comprehensive notes, and we've gone over most of the stuff. So if you'll indulge me, I'd like to read some of this.
Absolutely.
I'm not gonna go through all of it. Okay, so we got the inspector. Whatever he did must have been big because it got him in the news. Then you have that's the inspector Cadam. He's the guy who shoots himself in the head. Police station, mustaches everywhere. By the way, almost everybody in this freaking movie, except the bad guy, has a mustache. Like an
also
awesome
not the love interest.
freaking mustache. True. The love interest decidedly does not have a mustache. Let's see, Mega is her name, Mrs. Kadam. She's the wife of the cop that you first see. She's very supportive on the phone, saying good things to the husband, who eventually blows his brains out. Jacont Shrike, I don't even know how to say his name, but I wrote it down because of the caption. He goes, made Kadam pull the trigger. Holy shit, did he just strangle a child to death?
I have that note. Did he just kill a kid?
At some point, his whole game is raising money by kidnapping children, threatening their death to the parent. The parent then transfers money via a quick drop-off in exchange, which happens later in the movie as well. And if they don't pay, he kills them. And in one of the shots, you see him make the call. And like, you obviously made a choice. He hangs up the phone and strangles a child, like, in front of you. You don't see him. You don't see the kid die. But I'm like, holy shit! Like, they just show that there's no way that would pass in like a U.S. movie. But I was just astonished by that. I'm like, already, you don't like this guy. And even though they don't show a lot of his other stuff, like what makes him so evil, that was pretty fucking evil.
They did have to establish his badness, and I think that worked really well.
They did it
the
pretty
first
quickly.
20 minutes. And then like Jacant, I guess is his name. He tells a reporter to shoot himself because they're like, you made him shoot himself. He pulls out a gun. He goes, here, shoot yourself. He goes, see, I have no power. It says here in my note, ballsy. Singham gets a great intro, and then I have the Singham hand motion. I've drawn a picture of the Singham hand motion, because every time they say his name, they do this little like hand here thing, and they just do this claw.
Singham.
Which, exactly, which is, this actually had a more memorable score, and I'm sure Liz is going to overhear me at some point, more memorable score than Spider-Man, the movie. And I hate you, Danny Elfman, for not having an appropriate theme for Spider-Man. But Singham, that's catchy. All right. He has an honest heart, value him. This is some of the lyrics from the song. Like, they're just freaking over the top. First fight, open fist palm, physics, says exclamation point. Guy bounces around. It's like an old Western because, like, he's basically the law. He's like a one-man police department and, like you said, basically runs the whole village. He's opened the police station for some reason because it's his. He's got lots of money because he's helped somebody out. Let's see. Country boy turned city boy. 2148 is where I stop. S slaps a girl. This is Kavya. Did he land a date by slapping her? Yes. The answer is yes.
No.
Bullet. Well, it kind of does because he's like, well, no, not directly, but indirectly. We can get to that later. Bully talks smack about Kavya. S is on it. S is Singham, obviously. S is to fight the bully. Whole town comes to fight S. That forehead palm strike. There's the first instance of me writing that. Chase. So in the chase scene, I have this next line just says whipping. When Singham is pissed, he takes off his belt with this big chunky ass buckle and starts beating people. I haven't seen a whooping like that on, like that was like super violent. Eric, you have an opinion on this?
The second time he does it, in one of the final fight scenes, I think he hands his gun to to the girl. I can't remember her name, and just hands the gun to her, and then takes off his belt and just starts whipping dudes. Like,
well, and he tries to do it to the second in command bad guy, who just laughs it off the whole time. And I thought, this is odd because you're really undercutting Singham's effectiveness with the belt, which up to this point we've seen has been pretty damn effective. But now this crony, the second in command guy, is essentially the whole part of the plot at this point is the second in command is taking full blame for all the crimes, thus exonerating his boss and claiming that he is the one who's responsible for all the kidnappings and murders and stuff.
Well, that's
and
right. He's
Singham's
moving
trying
around the station while Singham's beating him with his belt.
Singham is trying to beat a confession out of him, and the guy just keeps laughing. And I'm like, well, this isn't consistent.
It's kind of like when Batman beats up the Joker in Dark Knight. It's like, but this is way more ridiculous because this whipping is going on for about 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, this is a consistent. It's a whipping. It's not like, taking somebody and pushing them against like a wall. He is consistently beating this guy named Shiva, beating him. He's sitting in a chair and he's laughing. He's even making hand gestures. He goes, "You're gonna salute him." What with that? It's like while he's being beaten, he's making gestures, and I'm like, how? How is he doing this? It was magnificent. Anyway, back to my crazy notes. Kavya's got bedroom eyes after she sees Singham beat the guy with the whip. So the bully goes back into the theater, gives back the sari, that's the scarf, I guess, and then Singham just lets him go. That's the end of that, by the way. He just lets him go. There's no other justice other than that.
He does apologize. He does apologize.
He does apologize, but like it's not like he goes to jail. He just gets his ass kicked, hands back the sari, and there's an apology. They show off like Kavya's giant like diamond ring. It looks like she was engaged. So then she has this little montage of like my diamond necklace was stolen, purse, mobile phone, bangles. I go, oh, this is cute. Like, oh, they're trying to get them together. Singham won't have Katya's advances. He's a dense motherfucker. This is my next note, because he's not getting that she's trying to see him. Even I knew that, and I'm really dense when it comes to that. I have a quote here. I love you, yeah? This is what this girl yells at him. She becomes so angry that he won't give an answer or say it back. She yells at him, and then she convinces her entire family that Singham's the guy for her. So like, and she just keeps pushing him. I go,
that scene was fantastic. She's like, "Come on, Mom, you know his whole family. Like, Grandma, you know his profession."
Although like the dad is never a big fan until Singham rescues the other daughter.
Right. Yeah. Saving one daughter, not enough.
This badgering is amazing. That's what the line is. Singham equals Halloween costume, because that was for me. I'm like, there's not enough brown people out there. Probably could pull it off. Okay, Kavya is feisty. I have that really.
You'll need to have a lamp, Iyaz. You'll have to carry a lamp around.
And a little RC car with a jeep full of people. That's what I'm going to just do. A miniature. Jacant is wonderfully evil. Let's see. Singham walked right past Jacant, and if you insult Jacant's ego, that's when he gets angry. So Jacant talks down to Singham. Town destroys motorcade because they come into this town. There's like 15 of these Land Rovers. Whole town shows up, destroys all the cars. So Jacant has to sign into this precinct for 15 days. Ego fractured. Let's see. Meanwhile,
I missed that. I didn't understand that scene at all. Where
there was an old. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. The as I understand it, so the bad guy had been accused of a crime, and in order for him to get through the system, he was supposed to report to this one police station every day for like 15 days or 16 days and sign in to it's kind of like house arrest to prove that he's staying in this one area until the trial happens.
Yeah, I think I just missed like the dialogue right before it, because I was sitting there going, "Wait, why is this so insulting?"
This is where he ends up, he plans on just brushing it off, and he sends his underlings to do it.
That's right.
And Singham won't accept it, and so that's why he has to go out and see Singham, and he thinks he's gonna intimidate Singham because he's the big shot. So he's like, well, this guy's gonna bow to me just like everyone else does. Singham doesn't bow to him, and he is essentially threatening Singham. That's when the entire village shows up and starts ripping apart his motorcade, because the village is fiercely loyal to Singham, which becomes a thing.
And they just show up, and they're like, and Singham's like even saying, "Okay, you just spoke loudly to me, and that's what they did. Imagine if I did." So it was pretty neat. Like, okay, this village is way into him. I've got my next note here. Meanwhile, Mega tries to find justice for her dead husband because he's been painted as a corrupt cop. She doesn't think he is. Singham transfer orders to Goa City. Now Singham is in the crooked precinct that we saw in the beginning. Entire precinct is very at attention at Singham's site. It's kind of weird because everyone's like kind of giddy. They're like, "Oh, hey, it's good to see you." Jacant enters the precinct. He's set up Singham's transfer. Intermission is now, by the way. Singham interviews people to learn about Jacant. He finds out that Jacant is now a candidate for some kind of office. So now this guy's going from like the underworld into some kind of minister role is what he wants to have. Jacant starts tormenting Singham to get him to and calls him to gloat. Every single time something bad happens to Singham, there's a phone call right after it, and it's this guy on the phone, which I thought was pretty neat. Actually, just it seemed very cartoonish, but also like a big fuck you. You came into my town, I brought you here, and now I'm going to ruin your life. So that's a good motivation to have a revenge story. Let's see. Kavya guilts Singham about his decision to leave because he's like, I'm going to go back to my town. And this is where the big fight scene with the lamppost happens. Fight. Pulls up a lamp to fight. He starts strolling in slow-mo to the car that's stalling. Now the car is running. Now he starts running. Dat palm strike. There's again. Drags the bad guys. Tiger roar. Kavya joins him to take his gun because she just walks in the scene because she's in the back by the pier or like by like this gate. She comes up and like she's just waiting for something. And he's like gives her his gun because he's done this before. And then there's the whipping.
Yep.
Okay. Planting evidence / falsifying evidence to my next note because that's how he just gets people arrested at this point. Note, Singham is interesting. Singham has taken over an entire police station because now everyone is answering to him. He's now playing mind games with Jacant, which I thought was kind of neat. Car chase in the parking lot. I have big stars around this. I've seen this. This is the scene that Eric was talking about. It's an epic GIF. It's fantastic. If you haven't seen it, the thing flying in the air and he's ripping the guy out. Kind of reminds me of the Deadpool trailer. If you haven't seen that. That's right. So they go into the minister's office. He's the one of the head of the police kind of things, and they proceed to boot him. And by boot him, I mean they have him bent over or held in a headlock, and every cop that's there is kicking him in the ass. They're all doing it. I actually have booting to the minister because I hadn't seen one of those. But that's what they did because he was so fond of his chair. They wanted him to have a lesson the next time he sat in it. Pretty poetic. All right, so Jacant wins the election, by the way, while all this shit's going on. Transfers Singham out of town. He's like, well, forget you. You're done with this. So Singham loses
in 24 hours.
In 24 hours,
That's classic bad guy mistake is giving the good guy 24 hours to turn shit around.
So Singham loses it, whips Shiva. Shiva laughs. That's what we were talking about with this. He's the number 2 guy who is getting destroyed with the whip. 11 hours before the transfer, Singham says he's going to take down Jacant. The whole police department joins Singham. They walk into Jacant's place. And this is the line of his quote. Kill him and call it a suicide. And everyone agrees. That's what I'm like.
Yeah, the only thing they don't agree on is what method of suicide. They debate the various methods of suicide and like, no, we can't do that because that would implicate us. Let's how about hanging? Well, I don't know.
I like that thought process. I thought we were being set up to have some kind of poetic justice where this guy was going to commit suicide, kind of driven crazy, kind of like, I won't win.
That's the entire scene. I'm sitting there going, oh, well, we're just waiting for Singham to step up with some like logic or something.
I was pretty sure the whole thing, like the whole time they were talking about killing him and making it look like a suicide, that was just Singham doing some mental torture on the bad guy. That he never had any intention to actually kill the guy and make it look like a suicide. It was all just to show this guy, guess what? You don't have the power anymore. Now every cop, because you forgot about this part, Iyaz. He goes to a party that has all these high-ranking police officers in it. He encounters one of these high-ranking police officers who's essentially just below the minister level, and essentially guilts the entire group into being good guys for one day. He essentially tells them for one day, like, yes, for the next 11 hours we'll be good guys.
It's very handy that it happens to be some kind of annual police festival, because that's what's happening at the time. Because you're right, because it's outdoors, it's lit up, and everyone feels guilty. A couple of the cops quit the force to be good guys, which makes more sense because they're really vigilantes. So I get that. Then the entire police department, you see all of these trucks, and they're like, "We're behind you." So they go for it. Then I have again. There's where it says giant that palm strike, because there is the fight again. But then I have here, Singham kills Jacquant in the chair that Kadam died in. And that's the end of my notes, because I couldn't believe that happened.
No,
like he puts him in the chair, puts the gun to his temple, and then I'm like, oh, this isn't going to happen.
Well, the chase scene...
My last note is literally, holy fuck, he shot him?
And he did.
The chase sequence is amazing, though. The chasing where the bad guy's running physically, and like every single police officer in the world is after him. And like he gets into a phone booth and he tries to make a call, and he's going through the operator, and when he explains who he is, the operator says, "Oh, just 1 minute," and then the operator connects the police officers. Like, so he's over in this phone booth. The guy's like, "Shit!" and he just starts running again. Well, that was amazing.
Why on earth did the operator not go like mute and then tell? But it was kind of Benny Hill-ish. The ending. That's why.
Especially because he had to whip out his cell phone to call the police.
That's why I was like, they're not going to shoot him. There's no way they're going to kill this guy, because it's Benny Hill at the end. No, they fucking shoot the guy in the head.
Right. Like, it is weird.
It's our hero that goes.
They have physical comedy placed so closely with a murder. You know, there's actual murder.
And then
a murder and a cover-up.
The cover-up epilogue where the head of police is sitting at this at a press conference explaining what happened. They actually give us these nice flashbacks to the night where they set up the whole framing of this whole suicide. Singham's there the whole time, just kind of like sternly looking at the whole time during the cover-up. And then they just kind of move on in slow-mo, I think, at the end, and that was the...
Well, and the cop who had been accused of corruption at the very beginning is exonerated. Yeah, right. At the very end. So, happy ending for everybody. I love this movie. I tell you the movie I wish we could find. And if anyone knows where we can get an English translation of this film, I want to see the Indian film Robot, which you may have seen clips of as well. The famous clips are all of these like duplicates of the same guy who form together to make larger shapes. Like they're supposed to all be robots that are based off the physical appearance of the guy who created the robots. So you get like a billion different versions of this one guy, the human one, and then 999,999,999 robot versions of this guy. And there are sequences where the robots all form together to form like a giant ball with guns poking out of it that shoot in all directions as it spins around like crazy. Or it turns into a cobra. But my favorite is when they all join together to form an enormous version of himself So it's all these individual robots that have essentially linked arms and made a huge humanoid robot that sticks out its hand, which is made up of other humanoid robots, and does a thumbs up, and the thumb is one robot who then does his own little thumbs up. And I'm like, I need to see this movie, and I need it in English because I don't understand anything that's happening, and I want to. So if anyone knows where an English translation of that film is with subtitles or whatever, you should let us know, because I would love to see that film.
I think I definitely found a YouTube video of what you were talking about.
Yeah. Is it called like Indian Terminator or something like that?
Indian Robot and Huron? And Huron?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that the title loosely at least translates into robot, and I've always wanted to see the full version of that. There's actually, I'll have to look it up. There's another film. I guess we're getting the audio now.
I don't know where they are.
Васигаран наделил его силой для защиты сотни человек, а я придал ему силы для уничтожения зверей.
I like the question mark.
Одним словом, теперь он разрушитель.
Oh, you're watching a Russian translation of the damn thing. That's an Indian film with a Russian translation on top of it. Yeah, I recognize that because I've heard that video there too. But anyway, we need to find that at some point and watch it. But I think, Iyaz, I think your punishment is up. I think it's actually your turn to pick.
Oh dear God, I am not ready for this. I'm gonna look for something.
I mean, because Eric said he was going to give up for a couple of turns after.
Yeah, I'll take my 2 turns after that.
I'm gonna look at my list because I know I added things and we've talked about this.
Okay.
Oh, I shouldn't. I don't want to. You know, we've watched a decent movie recently, and Jonathan has picked not horribly built movies. So it's my duty to bring this back to shit.
Okay.
And I don't think we've watched this. At least I hope nobody's watched this. Have you guys seen Blood Lake?
I can tell you it doesn't sound like one of. Is this the one with Shannon Doherty?
Mm-hmm.
And Christopher Lloyd?
Yep.
Holy
I
shit.
added this.
No, I don't know how I haven't seen this.
I added this to my Netflix queue. I added this to my Netflix queue in anticipation of having a pick. This was like 6 weeks ago. Like when I gave up my turns. I'm like, oh, I'll just keep something here. And that's what I have there. And I don't think we've watched a shitty movie in a while. Wait a second. What did Eric pick that I was so angry about? I can't remember. Strange Frame.
Strange, yeah.
That's what it was. But yes, I think Blood Lake, unless there's any like obvious, hey, Iyaz, don't do this. It's don't go in the woods. Because if I'm going to get angry at it, it just looks stupid and bad.
I got 1.3 stars.
Okay, so wait. This is Blood Lake with the subtitle Attack of the Killer Lampreys. As seen on Animal Planet.
Wait, what?
As seen on Animal Planet. So it says on the cover. I'm looking at Attack of the Killer Lampreys. Yeah, I'm looking at it on IMDb right now.
What I'm asking is, were lampreys shown on Animal Planet, or is this movie?
Fuck if I know, dude. I'm just reading what's on the goddamn cover.
Because it wouldn't be.
It does
above,
say as seen as on Animal Planet. What is?
Well, it's 86 minutes, so it's fast, and it'll be painful. I hope.
But you're gonna feel every one of those goddamn 87 minutes.
I really want to watch something dumb because Singham was pretty awesome, and I think I found something.
No, I think you can feel relatively confident of your pick.
I just wish there was an easy way to find Asylum movies on Netflix. Just like look up Asylum and then like see those stuff because I like.
Oh shit!
It was horrible.
I accidentally started the movie. I just wanted to see what my rating was. Our best guess is
because Netflix just killed their API. So
the best guess for me is 1.2 stars. Jesus.
1.2.
All right. Yeah, 1.2.
Yeah, 1.3. It's gonna be. Yeah.
I've got
all right.
PWP. I've got 2.
You know,
The average.
Well, for PWP,
I know
you
one
have
thing
to?
I know one thing I am not going to give thanks for this year.
Blood
It's going to be
Lake.
Blood Lake.
Well, you can watch Singham Returns right after it, I assume, and you'll feel way better.
Yes.
Yeah, I might
Singham.
actually. Once I realized there was a sequel, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that.
I didn't know there was a sequel until just now, until you guys have just mentioned it.
Oh yeah, because when
I
you do a
had no idea.
YouTube search for it, Singham Returns is like the first one,
Yeah.
which is weird. And this movie, by the way, we were talking about, is on YouTube, the full thing in like 720p with captions that are pretty freaking good. So watch it if you want to while you can, because it was on Netflix for like, I think Jonathan picked it up on a Tuesday. It was gone by Friday, so that was fast.
So so Singham Returns is a remake of an earlier film, but it I guess replaces the lead with Singham.
Well,
But
the
it's a
Singham
remake.
actually, the one we saw was a remake. I was looking at the trivia.
Oh, was
This
it?
a remake?
Interesting.
It turns out that the guy who played the bad guy in this one that we saw wrote the first one.
Yes, this one is a remake of so Singham was a remake of the 2010 blockbuster Singham. Although it was
so this
Singham,
is just like
Singham
a
with
whole
an
Spider-Man
H.
thing.
Well, Singham Returns is a remake of a 1993 film. So this is the second movie is a remake of a film that's not connected to the first movie and predates the first movie. So it just
This
makes
is
me want
very
to watch
odd.
it more.
All right, so we should
Okay.
do a promo. We never do this, so I always forget. So this time I'm not going to forget because I did this last time. So if you like this show, you want to watch old episodes or listen to them, thankfully our friends at gfqnetwork.com have an archive of this program, which is a lot of bullshit. Because I mean, we just talked about it.
episodes.
Yeah, it's a lot. We've done that like over like 3,000 episodes. About 100 have been published. So if you want to go to gfqnetwork.com and get the archives there, subscribe there. If you want to watch this live, we do this on Tuesdays when I'm not dead, on Tuesdays at 10:30 Eastern. There's a chat room where Eric puts in one link, and I also remember that I was signed into the chat room where I would write things like hello or write hi because it's easier. So you could be in a chat room where you just see us talking to ourselves, kind of like this. Oh, and it's a live stream. So that's enough for promo stuff. gfqnetwork.com. Thank you.
/live.
Should we see what's in the future, Iyaz?
Sure. Next week on Podcast Without Pretense.
Okay, so I looked it up, and technically he's not 20 years older. He's just 16 years older.
Yeah, I don't know why I decided to have a bunch of like sushi during Blood Lake, but it kind of fit well.
Well, there's been a protest like every weekend, and I'm way too close to downtown here. Like, it's just annoying at this point.